The greatest respect to you. Could you liaise with the minister concerned on the dealing of NID in this country and propose a law in this parliament so that we make it a law for the requirement of NID? If you can't do it, liaise with the appropriate minister. Can you do that? Otherwise, everybody's making their own law.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you.
Minister, go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Thank you, my good Governor, Honourable Luther Wenge, long good asking blue you, and very timely asking blue you. In the wisdom of our Prime Minister and the government, the reason why we've put the NID project under internal security, so I am also responsible for the NID project, and asking blue you am in line with them intention block government. Na very soon, good luck, Governor, by institutions below me, including the private sector, by Yumi conform igolong NID below me. As part of internal security white paper, by me present him soon too. NID is the basis or what we would deem to be the genesis for development, but at the same time, it is also, as a country, a greater part of our intelligence. So NID, Governor, good luck asking you. Bayumi come close to Bayu Harim as part of the government's proposal to ensure that we go inside long electronic voting too. NID by must come up mandatory. So me talk thank you, Lord Isla, good luck asking you. Yes, very soon by you looking where Yumi government, by Yumi start putting more pressure, Lord Yumi Olgata institutions. Now, inside long law, by you may make sure that ME by come up now #1 base ID belong Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Governor.
You want an appropriate minister by introducing bill of parliament or making NID requirement and compulsory. Answer him to plan set also.
Honourable Governor, I will not entertain your point of order because you haven't waited for the chair to authorize you to speak your point of order. So I rule your point of order out of order. The Honourable Member for Kokopo.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Long look sabekan long all people belong Kokopo. Question below me, stop long paper. You go lo good la, hardworking minister long defense na disaster. But before me ask him question, little brief background to solve long answer him this question for me. Acting Speaker, inside of Papua New Guinea now we work losing more buildings through fire. Na tupla question for me go long minister also. Me sabe na me appreciate him na talk thank you. Lo you minister, long got this initiative lo travel out lo Papua New Guinea long try and identify one more issues that evoke lo stop through lo fire stations. My question is, minister, have a good minister through you, Acting Speaker. You may got plan long improving all fire stations throughout Papua New Guinea. Na second question below me also. Suppose yes, he got plan na misabe also. The Marape Rosso government he got plan lo disla. And in it too long manpower. Lo firefighters inside lo Papua New Guinea, we are running out of manpower. Second question, you mean recruit him can sample along these officers, or can you can train him all so that they become firefighters? In East New Britain, we lost another building again. And in it lo fire where this la wholesale is have feed him Manus, is have feed him Bougainville, is have feed him West New Britain, na New Ireland. The whole entire East New Britain. John J. Sito where now finish. 2016, na 2017, time Governor of East New Britain, we raised him this question, he got a minister responsible. Law fire. We lost roughly 3 buildings, Tropicana, Big Rooster, and some other buildings. Unless we are going into some of the cities throughout Papua New Guinea and all towns, this is very important. So acting minister acting speaker this question without notice you call minister na before me sit down meet on behalf of people of New Britain na people belong Kokopo talk thank you long minister belong civil aviation through the managing director lo release him there's a fire which is not supposed to be released long lo protect him 7 houses where only supposed to burn down to lo give him fire truck go inside lo Kokopo and in it lo safety act long NAC we plan on up release him this but thank you through minister lo release him lo look sabe lo people belong East New Britain. Last minister while me got this opportunity long ask question thank you time lo minister thank you minister of defense lo bring him all team go inside lo training to inside long Kokopo and in it lo cadet training thank you minister of defense but be like him you talk him all people inside lo Papua New Guinea also me got plan long improve him the fire facilities inside long Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Acting Speaker.
Minister of Defense.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Speaker. Morning long, Deputy Prime Minister, Ministers, Governors, ladies. Thank you very much for the good question long. Kokopo. Fire, me can talk behind, but me like Sibisla City long last Friday. They got 2 questions, me no stop, but our Honorable Prime Minister, James Marabe, MB Nigerian this question, but me like Kishim this sick leave, Acting Speaker. Me like Kishim sick leave long, say apology.
Honorable member, you like Sikkim leave lo one matter. Lo absence play you or?
Me like sick leave lo say apology na. Me like just bring him leaving lo 2 question lo Friday.
Honorable member, I will allow you only to respond to member for Kokopo. Narapla 2 question, Prime Minister respond finish. If you want, you can seek him leave lo next session lo work it. But for now, by you answering Tasol question, member of Kokopo is asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Good question belong member of Kokopo. Online belong is no Britain. Me like making this apology belong last house being fire. Because me black 2 truck. Mibla bin Salem gola 2009 after the epic, and Tupla donated by Australia. One of them donated by Australia and one donated by China. Begin Tupla go out before me come law defense. Our former member have been given Tupla truck up, and then Mibla got Tupla all plus up. So we have total of 4. But my apology is that one plan, Australia been giving me like a clutch problem. And then China is giving me like a pump problem. So last time I think honorable member, me been visiting fire service log rubble, me sawel of this problem. Me like a 2 problem in water pump problem, na like a clutch problem, na this house in fire. Now, on behalf of Department below me, no defense now fire, me like to thank you, Minister of Civil me like to thank you, Airport Corporation, only got big truck lab. Me like to thank you because this plan underneath long government belong, Marabe Ross government. Me police staff, fire service staff, civil aviation staff, army staff, CIA staff, and underneath long government person. So thank you, Minister. You responsible for this la. Lily problem will come, but me to sorry yourself, house and fire. But me got problem in this law 2 black car blooming, no fire service. But before that, me kisim pump finish, me salim go all feeding. Now people wait them clutch and come lohoda.
Honorable Minister.
But my apology is that.
Honorable Minister, you make a point of order.
Mr. Acting Speaker, I think the good honourable member for Kokopo's question is straightforward. What big plan? What is the biggest plan for the Defence Force and the emergency services for the entire country on the fire service? You know about one small truck where you got problem of parts now, this black and something. I'm like Samuel, when a big plan, where minister I got the fire service the whole country, and whether I got plan, the work in recruitment, long giving more manpower, the fire service. Simple question. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
Honorable Member for Banimo Green, your point of order is in order. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Me stop law apology. Me no stop law. Real program blow, future blow, fire service. Me stop law, fire service. Now I think member blow anymore. At least you pay it really fast.
Honorable Minister.
Sending the apology. This problem come up so me blow no attending this building. I'm just saying the apology.
Honorable Minister, you may get limited time to question,
okay.
So if you can go straight now, answer him.
All right. Thank you. Me solve this apology because we have a problem like this. Okay. Now we got big plane. Me come looking finish. Last year me put him 100 plan me graduate last year, and then me distribute him finish. Now me teach 100 more again. 100 more again. So me put him all kind of training. So you know semi total either. So I have been come to your province. I told you. Governor me told you too. Something mean give it, you look at him. Suppose you no look at him, they can blame me. But me come back again. Now but you waiting me yet. Think you know PIP, DSIP, and money on something. What does something mean give him? Honorable members and governors in the Papua New Guinea. Me say give him law according to building blue, area blue, town blue. Law mostly. And me say give him law according to law all big stories. Now me say give him the province. Me say give him the Misawa and me give him. Law mark blue. So me got big plan, country block, Maraberos government, me got big plan like standing. I think, I hope, I trust myself that all the province, you got 1122 track stop. So governors and members, look at him. Thank you.
The honourable member for, we have a point of order, Prime Minister.
Questions. Mr. Speaker, I want you to rule some decorums in the House. When you're making interventions up in the front, members need to sit down. These are little ethics that needs to be reminded properly. When you're making ruling, members must sit down, and then those who are responding must sit down and give respect to the chair. Mr. Acting Speaker, I just want you to remind all of us on these little ethics, please. Thank you.
Honourable members, the Prime Minister's point of order is in order. As you all know that when you have a member standing and talking and the other member standing, you know can stand up time narapla and mock him. Honourable members, in addition to the point of order raised by the Prime Minister, the Chair is in charge of the Parliament. You have to wait for the call of the Chair. When the Chair asks for you to stand, you stand. If you stand for a point of order, and when the Speaker called for you to entertain your point of order, the member who is in talking, you have to sit while the other member, when Speaker allowed for him to address his point of order. Yeah. I will now ask the member for Ungai Bena.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my people of Ungai Bena, of whom I am very grateful and count it a rare privilege to represent in this House. I have 3 questions, and they are directed to the Minister for State-Owned Enterprises, Honorable William Duma. But just a brief background before I ask the questions. My question stems from the fact that our Prime Minister and this government is demanding more from our resource projects, of which God has blessed us in abundance. We have seen recently much better deals with Papua LNG, Pinyan, Wafikopu, and Pogra. We are taking more shares, but I think the ideal would be if we go in and own 100% of our resource projects. A case, as an example, for us is the Ok Tedi. I got some reliable sources from Ok Tedi mine. In terms of foreign exchange and revenue, Ok Tedi on a monthly basis brings in FX of 80 million US dollars. By the end of the year, they're projecting 1.2 billion US dollars that should hit our shores. And it is the only mining company in PNG that brings in all its FX into the country, unlike other companies operating in the country. And so my 3 questions to the State-Owned Enterprise Minister is, bringing on from the queue that our Prime Minister has set for this government and for the country. Are there any plans or the big picture visions or strategy for this government through Kumul Mining Holdings and of course KPHL for that matter to work with on acquiring exploration license and mining lease and work with Ok Tedi and probably develop new mines that are 100% Papua New Guinea owned instead of waiting for investors to come in. So that's the first question. Are there any plans or strategies for this government to go in and develop new mines that are 100% owned by the country? Second question, if yes, what has been done to date in terms of progress? And number 3, if not, can you and your ministry work on a strategy as a matter of priority? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of State Enterprise.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Ungai Bena for asking these 3 important questions. Mr. Acting Speaker, the current regime we have in the mining as well as oil and gas sector is called a concessionary regime, where under the mining legislation, a state-owned company such as Kumul Mineral Holdings can acquire up to 30% in a proposed project after whoever company has got the license to explore has been able to make a discovery and establish that the resources in a particular SML area are enough to underpin a project. So once the risk has been taken by that company to do the exploration and then make a discovery and then do the studies and that company is able to present the bankable feasibility studies to a financier, and once we are satisfied that there is a project that is ready to go, then the state will then, to Kumul Mineral Holdings, exercise its right to acquire up to 30% in that project. That is in the case of the mining industry. In the case of the oil and gas industry, a similar situation applies, except that whereas in mining you have 30%, in the oil and gas sector it is 22.5%. Those regimes are called concessionary regimes, unlike other countries in the neighborhood where the national companies such as Petromina or Petronas in Malaysia takes up to 100% of everything. So in the case of Ok Tedi, if I can explain,
Acting Speaker. The case of Octady is different in that when BHP exited the mine because of the environmental issues, it reached an agreement with the state where the state would then acquire 100% of that mine. And that is why we own state interest, including our landowners and provincial governments, own 100% of that mine. In the others, we still are governed by the existing mining regime, but we have seen, thanks to the leadership provided by our Prime Minister in the current government, our country has been able to plow in a little bit more equity than has been the case in the past, thanks to the efforts of our Prime Minister. So the plans in the oil and gas sector, I understand, are actually being driven by our good Minister for Petroleum and Energy, where the idea is to amend the law such that our equity in those projects are increased to more than 22.5%. There are also similar plans for the mining industry, and Kumul Mineral Holdings is actually looking at those, and we are working in sync with the the Minister for Oil, Petroleum and Energy. In the case of Octady, Kumul Mineral Holdings Limited has, through a subsidiary company, already allocated funding and has engaged teams of geologists and specialists to do their own exploration, such that in the event we run out of reserves in our Octady mine in the near future, there are other highly prospectable areas surrounding that area in the Star Mountains. So the idea is for Kumul Mineral Holdings, through its subsidiary company, to explore just like any other exploration company. And if it is lucky, it should be able to make discoveries. So at this stage, there is nothing stopping both Kumul Mineral Holdings and Kumul Petroleum Holdings to conduct their own exploration by firstly applying for special or exploration licenses in the mining area and petroleum prospecting licenses in the oil and gas sector. The law at this stage does not prevent our nationally owned companies such as Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited and Kumul Mineral Holdings to apply for exploration licenses in both the mining and oil and gas sector, just like any other company, and to actually spend the exploration money. So, in fact, to answer that question, Mr. Acting Speaker, there is no law preventing our two nationally owned companies from exploring just like any other companies. And there are indeed plans by both Kumul Petroleum Holdings. In fact, Kumul Petroleum Holdings has already applied for petroleum prospecting licenses. It has already, through the assistance of our good Minister for Petroleum and Energy, been able to secure petroleum retention licenses where discoveries have already been made. What is needed is for more appraisal wells to be done to prove out the reserves before applying for a petroleum development license. So both our companies are actively involved in their own right in exploring just like any other company. In cases where discoveries are made, as we know, we still have our rights to exercise options up to 30% in the mining sector and 20.5% in the oil sector. We just simply exercise our back-end rights. So, yes, Mr. Speaker, our two companies have been involved in exploration. In the case where licenses were given earlier and where they are proven reserves, they have been able to exercise the options to acquire those up to 22.5% in the oil and gas sector and 30% in the mining sector. And in the case of Porgera, as we've witnessed, when the special mining lease came to an end, our government, through our Prime Minister, was able to negotiate a better package, despite laws saying that we were only entitled to 30%. So we were able to exercise our options, and we've done well in both our industries. So I thank the good member for Ungabena for this important question. Thank you, Acting Speaker.
The opposition leader.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. My series of questions without notice is to the Prime Minister. Mr. Acting Speaker, as a way of background, last week, Wednesday this month, 17 female students of Walaku Primary School in remote Bosawi in Hela Province were kidnapped, raped, and held captive by more than 40 armed men at midnight. Here we are talking about children between the ages of 13 and 15. 4 grade 5, 5 grade 6, 8 grade 7 students kidnapped and demanding compensation of 40,000 kina and 10 pigs. Media reports received this week has confirmed that the children have been released following payment of 3,300 kina and 9 pigs. Mr. Acting Speaker, this has come at the back of kidnapping of scientists in the same province earlier this year, and we suspect perhaps there are more cases that have not been reported. And so my series of questions, Mr. Acting Speaker, is based on the fact that this has now caused much anxiety and concern among many parents, many citizens and non-citizens alike in this country. So my series of questions to you, Mr. Acting Speaker, to the Prime Minister is as follows. 1, Prime Minister, would you not admit that your government has made a blunder when it paid an undisclosed sum of money to the kidnappers of the scientists, in the case of the scientists recently? Second question, Prime Minister, would you not agree that this has set a bad precedent and now has ignited a growing industry of opportunists seeking quick money through kidnapping? Question 3, Prime Minister, what is the status of arrest of these kidnappers in the case of the scientists and now in the case of the kidnapped girls? Could we please get an update? And question 4, Prime Minister, do you have any plans to put a stop to this growing industry that we are now seeing in Papua New Guinea? Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. I want to appreciate the opposition leader's good question in relation to what was a village or a community school or some students up there in a remote part of our country being held for ransom. I want to inform this House at that part of our country, very pristine area but unreached by road, only serviced by air, and it's in the border of Southern Islands, Hela, Gulf and Western Province. On the south side of that part of our place is some logging that is going on, has been going on for the last 20 to 30 years. The loggers are now moving down right up into the foothills of Mount Bosawi, a very fragile ecosystem up there where some of endemic species to that part of our country is only found and found nowhere else on earth. But the logging that has been happening up north from that place is where and it's about 30 to 40 kilometers up north, is where the lucrative PNG LNG project is predominantly hosted. Further east, northeast is where the Kudubu and Moran oil fields are. And so very important backdrop to this question that is raised. I want to also contextualize. In Como, for instance, Como still operate under the structure of the Southern Highlands police structure. Only two permanent policemen operates in that part of our country. And I want to inform all, in the absent, in a long absence that is prevalent, the long absence of law enforcement mechanisms to have a handle on any community-based issues are causing the criminals to resort to the crimes that they have been committed over some time. Unbeknown to most of us, the element of holding up for ransom has been going on for some time. There have been some foresters, those who work in the logging company in the borders of Gulf and Western Province have faced a similar sort of situation. About 6 or 7 years ago, and that has been going on for some time. And so, Mr. Acting Speaker, the appetite for ransom has also been fueled by this sort of instances. But when it came to the scientist who was kidnapped, it was purely a random opportunist crossing of path between the scientist and his team and those criminals who were coming back from a conflict resolution they were pursuing with the loggers further south. I just want to inform all, because it is now history, or that event as the crime has been committed. It is now documented in our police archives and our police report. The country is entitled to know a little bit of depth into what has happened. So when that opportunities, as the criminals were coming back, they met the scientists. The crime was committed. They were held as captives, and situations at the time warrant a very, very precise operation. A precise operation that would not endanger the life of the foreign scientists as well as the local aides who were and assistants who were working with the scientists. I may, Mr. Acting Speaker, also inform the House that it is not purely a precedent that was set at that moment, but we had to make incessions. There were incessions made from police level and our security forces. There were also incessions made by community leaders, and the community leaders assisted at the provincial level and the local councillors, because we do not want to endanger the life of a visiting fellow, a friend of Papua New Guinea who would come in to do research and work. And so a lot of approaches were made. We never paid ransom. Let me also inform this House, no ransom was paid. But there were some cash assistance, not to the tune of 3 million kina that they demanded. There was some cash assistance at the community level, and this cash was not given by the national government, but by community leaders themselves. People from Como, people from Bosavi, people from Kurubu, the Hela provincial government, Southern Highlands provincial government had to take responsibility at the community level. So, national government, there is no check written by the national government released to pay for ransom. That I want to put straight for everyone to take note. We do not encourage criminal activities. We will never pay for crimes to be committed in our country. But at the community level, as all Melanesians do, at the community level, as all Melanesians do, when someone foreign was held hostage, the community responded, and at all levels of community, from the provincial leadership down to the local leadership, responded, taking responsibility, and they had to usher in to the police the safe transfer of the expert as well as the nationals who were held to ransom. So I just want to inform all of us, national government never paid a ransom. The local community and local leadership stepped up to ensure that safety of the scientists and those who were helping was number one priority anyway, and the safety was maintained, and the scientists and his helping aid were successfully retrieved. I want to inform this House also there is no prize for crime. Two of the lead captors were arrested, and the police did operations in this area. For sensitivity, I will not inform fully, but let me inform the House. Police did full roundup of the area concerned. Two of the ringleader of this criminal gang were arrested, and they are now behind bars as I speak. So let it be known that police, whilst we have our own handicaps and perceived inefficiency, police will not rest on crimes being committed in our country. Crime is crime. No amount of compensation or no amount of remittance will eliminate the act of crime in our country. The place where you reconcile your crime or perceived crime is through the due process of law, and police arrest, police present evidence, and the prosecution of this matter before competent court. And so 2 were arrested. The rest identities are known. I want to also thank everyone engaged, including community leaders. And it is a hard call on the part of community leaders to really pinpoint where the wrong took place. As a result of community leaders pinpointing on who is who and what has taken place, the next lot of allegations emerged where these villages were accused of pinpointing and assisting in the lead-up work or follow-up work, both lead-up and follow-up work from the police. I want to inform all that even if it is remote, national government put in resources, police were equipped, military were assisted, we zeroed in and ring-fenced on the village concerned, and the criminals were bound to be arrested upon the release. Work continued on right after the release. And as a result, 2 were arrested and others, we are still tracking them as we speak. So those who think that you can be in this industry and get away, well, the long arm of law is still there. It will not be a 1-year operation or 1-day operation. It can take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. There is no benefit from engaging in crime in Papua New Guinea. Whether you're from up in the highlands or in the lowlands, there is no benefit from engaging in crime. And I just want to take this time also to speak to our youths out there. We have rolled out second chance education. We are rolling out SME. We're rolling out many of these programs. Go to your local member, go to your provincial governor, and ask them for help instead of engaging in this lawlessness out there. The government programs, and very soon we'll be rolling out programs in this space. Someone just posted a posting on some criminals being killed in Kimbe, and it broke my heart to see young men killed in this manner. And I just want to speak to our youths out there. We have programs for you. Go to your local member, go to your governors on what is the best that can be done for you instead of engaging in criminal activities out there. Coming to the issue on the 27 or 17 or so that was held hostage up there, again, I just want to thank the community up there. In the absence of police, community leadership, councillors, village courts, provincial government, they all stepped in. They were released, but the perpetrators are being worked upon to follow suit from the earlier crime. The perpetrators and the villagers are saying enough is enough. And what is happening in Hela today, villagers and leaders on the ground are even themselves identifying criminals to report them to police. The problem with us is police and defense following through to get the prosecution aspect complete and the match with the court evidences, etc. The communities up there frustrated. The first case was assisted by the community, including community putting fund. The second case assisted by the community putting fund. I want to inform all, police recruit that is going on. Next year there'll be police recruit. Following year there'll be police recruit. The other year there'll be police recruit. We've successfully paid out the aging police force. For the first time, we've cleared out a backlog of police retrenchment. We've carried for the last 10 years. All the elders in our police have been paid out. We're starting to re-recruit. We will rebuild our police force to 10,000 men police force within the next 5 or 6 years. There will be no time for crime in our country. We're building up a police force. We're going to this space. Mr. Opposition Leader, good question. I know it comes from a good place in your heart. You're concerned about this. We're concerned about this. The first crime, we've arrested 2, more to be arrested. The second one, we will arrest them. Community leaders are working. We will hopefully short-term police presence move in and out. But long-term, I want this Parliament to support more police in Enga, more police in Southern Highlands, more police in Hela, more police in Western Province, more police in New Ireland, more police in West New Britain, places where the country's economy is underpinned. We need to ensure resources and police are there to secure our country today and for the future. God bless. Thank you.
Member for Karawagi.
All people of Karawagi. My question without those is directed to my good brother, Minister for the Culture. Sometimes you mentioned about banning the chicken import, frozen meat import to this country. I think you have made a good decision to do that because to raise our local growers or local entrepreneurs in this country, we have to disable the import or our competitors. Can you tell this House the consequence of this ban on our local production and marketing and the consumer's response? Mr. Speaker, if our good minister has a department plan to rise local production to meet market on these particular important commodities. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Agriculture.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Also, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for asking a very critical question that is affecting the poultry industry of this country. Thank you for that very important question. Mr. Speaker, some months ago, through my office, we have banned importation of cheap poultry into the country. These chicken are coming from countries which we have don't have a very good biosecurity aspect that they meet our standard of imports. So that's why we have banned most of this chicken coming in. However, this ban does not stop importation of chicken that meets our biosecurity measures. These chickens, we've allowed them to come in, especially in New Zealand and other countries that have a very strict biosecurity standards. Coming back to your question of in terms of output and plans of the government, especially the Agriculture Department in poultry industry. Mr. Speaker, that's a very good question. I don't have the good figures to give to you, but I'll just give you a brief rundown on the imports and the outcome of this ban. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to stand here and say that the ban has created more jobs for our local economy. The ban has encouraged our local SME, especially in terms of poultry SMEs. The ban has now given more power to our local companies, especially the two poultry companies in Papua New Guinea. The ban has stopped influx of foreign exchange going out of the country. Mr. Speaker, this ban is good for this country. The ban indirectly, Mr. Speaker, is now encouraging our local entrepreneurs, our local businessmen to go into the space of poultry industry. A fine example is the member for Gazelle, and the people of Gazelle are now going into poultry production. And other industries, other districts are now exploring that avenue. I'm sure the central provincial government are also looking at that space also. And Namatanai. Mr. Speaker, going forward, this ban has created more employment to our local industry, and it will continue to do so. We want to take our industry to the next level. In doing that, we must also encourage local protectionism to our local industry. Mr. Speaker, I can provide a good member if he needs more detailed analysis of the income and the growth that this industry has, this ban has given the country. With that, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that answers the good minister's question. Thank you.
Honourable members, our question time has lapsed. Papers, the Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to statute, I present the agreement on the defence cooperation between Papua New Guinea, between the government of Papua New Guinea, independent state of Papua New Guinea, and the government of the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to make a statement in connection with the agreements.
Is the leave granted? Prime Minister, make your statement.